When we think of ancient empires, most of us picture Egypt's pyramids, Rome's aqueducts, or Greece's philosophers. But nestled between these titans was a kingdom that may have been even mightier than both of them put together: the Persian Empire. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to explore what made this forgotten empire one of the greatest in history. In today's episode, we'll cover the origins of the Persian Empire, how it grew into a global superpower, its political organization, cultural achievements, and finally how its innovations changed the world around it. So make sure to like this video, and let's dive in. Our story begins in ancient Iran, a land of rolling mountains and endless deserts. For centuries, small tribes like the Medes and Elamites roamed the area, each vying for dominance. But this would change with the rise of a new king, Cyrus the Great. Now, while history remembers him as Cyrus the Great, his name actually means "Sun is my source of light." When he came to power, Cyrus ruled a small state called Anshan, a tiny kingdom in southeastern Iran. But under his rule, it became a powerhouse. As the kingdom grew, so did Cyrus's ambitions. His goal was simple: unite all the tribes from Anatolia to India and create a great empire. But why did everyone follow him? Part of it was his military genius, defeating rivals and expanding his domain. Part of it was his charisma, winning allies and inspiring loyalty. And part of it was something even rarer: tolerance. You see, Cyrus had a unique idea for his empire. Unlike other rulers who forced their subjects to conform, Cyrus embraced diversity. He allowed local customs and religions, setting an example that his officers followed. Soon, disparate tribes were brought under one banner, forming the core of the Achaemenid Empire.
Wow.
But that doesn't mean there weren't challenges. Keeping such a large and diverse empire united was a full-time job. Rebellions flared up in Mesopotamia, Central Asia, and even parts of Iran. Cyrus had to spend much of his time and energy just putting down rebellions. But even after all that, Cyrus kept marching forward. His empire stretched from the Mediterranean Sea to the borders of India, and from the Caucasus Mountains to the Arabian Peninsula. It was a literal empire of many cultures. But Cyrus wasn't done yet. His sights were set on the seemingly invincible Babylon. Now, Babylon was the richest city in the ancient world, protected by enormous walls and boasting incredible hanging gardens. But Cyrus had a plan. While the Babylonians thought he'd attack from the front, he led his army south, crossing the Persian Gulf and sneaking up on the city. When the Babylonians turned to fight, it was too late. Cyrus had already taken over their water supply, cutting off their source of power. The city fell quickly and easily, solidifying Cyrus's legacy as an undefeated warrior. But not everything was sunshine and rainbows. In 522 BCE, Cyrus died, leaving his empire to his son Cambyses II. But Cambyses was troubled, struggled to control rebellious regions, and even lost his sanity towards the end of his reign. This instability led to civil war when a man named Gomada, who claimed to be a descendant of Cyrus, seized power. People looked to another hero, though, a Magian priest named Cyrus the Younger, who eventually took the throne as Cyrus VI. Together, father and son restored order, finishing Cyrus the Great's work and cementing the empire's early greatness. Now, if there's one thing all great empires have in common, it's good organization. And the Achaemenid Empire had some of the best organization the ancient world had ever seen. To understand how they managed such a huge empire, let's break down three of their greatest inventions. First, we have the satrapies. These were the 20 or so provinces that dotted the empire, each governed by a satrap. This title, by the way, is what we get the word satrap from. Each satrap acted as both a governor and a military commander, enforcing laws and raising taxes. But they weren't absolute. Satraps had to answer to a central authority, and to keep them honest, the empire introduced a second invention: the eyes and ears of the king. Basically, the Achaemenids implemented a vast system of spies. They monitored officials, collected intelligence, and reported back to the king. It was an early version of the modern-day intelligence community. Finally, the third key to the empire's success was the royal road. This road, part of a larger network of roads, stretched over 2,500 kilometers from Sardis to Susa. It connected the far corners of the empire, facilitating trade, communication, and military movement. All these systems work together to create a well-oiled machine of governance. ensuring that the emperor and Persepolis knew what was happening in every corner of his realm. But as the empire grew, so did its enemies. The first serious threat came from the Greeks. Located in what is now Turkey, the Ionian Greeks were subjugated by the Persians, but soon rebelled. The revolt spread like wildfire, destroying many Persian cities. Cyrus responded swiftly, sending his general Harpagus to crush the uprising. But at the Battle of the Halys River, Harpagus and the Persians were beaten back. It was the first major defeat in Persian history. But Cyrus wasn't deterred. He assembled a massive force and returned to the battlefield. This time he was ready. The Persian army was too much for the Greeks. Many rebels were slaughtered, others sold into slavery. Cyrus had won a hard but vital victory, securing his western border. However, he didn't stop there, pressed further into the Greek mainland, but this time he met his match. At the Battle of Marathon, a small force of Athenian hoplites beat back the invading Persians. The victory stunned the empire. Its western border was no longer secure. Years passed, and the Achaemenids prepared for a new campaign against the Greeks. But before they could take action, disaster struck. In 486 BCE, Artaxerxes I, the brother of Darius, overthrew his brother and took the throne. Historians call this event the Second Persian Revolution, and it changed the empire forever. Now, Artaxerxes wanted revenge against those who supported his brother, and that included the Greeks. He sent messengers to demand tribute from them, but the Athenians refused. Leading to a decade of intermittent conflict known as the Greco-Persian Wars, the tension was palpable. The Persians amassed massive armies and navies, eager to prove their superiority. The Greeks, though outnumbered, stood firm, determined to defend their way of life. The clash between these two titans will define history for generations to come. Meanwhile, back in Persia, the empire was changing too. After the Greco-Persian Wars, the Achaemenid Empire never really recovered. The constant fighting drained its resources, and its armies suffered heavy losses. Then, in 330 BC, a young Macedonian king named Alexander the Great marched east. He fought against Persia's king Darius III and defeated him at the Battle of Issus. This was a turning point. One by one, Persia's satrapies fell before Alexander's might. When he entered Persepolis, the jewel of the empire, he got drunk and set fire to it. The once mighty Achaemenid Empire was no more. But the Persian story doesn't end there. Despite losing its Achaemenid rulers, the Persian heartland remained Persian. Later dynasties like the Parthians and Sasanians kept the flame of Persian culture alive. It's constantly battling against the Roman and Byzantine empires. So what do we remember the Persians for? We remember them for their unparalleled organization, for the roads, the postal system, and the systematic approach to governing a diverse population. We remember them for their tolerance, for accepting people of different faiths and backgrounds, and allowing them to live in harmony. We remember them for their art, for the palaces and sculptures that decorated their cities, showcasing a mastery of design and aesthetics. And we remember them for their resilience, for never giving up even in the face of impossible odds. As we look back on the Persian Empire, we can't help but feel a sense of awe. They may not have had the pyramids or aqueducts of their contemporaries, but what they lacked in iconic structures, they made up for in innovation and cultural impact. Their contributions to science, mathematics, and philosophy laid the groundwork for future civilizations. Their religious ideas influenced monotheism's development, shaping the course of spiritual history. Yet despite their many achievements, the Persians are often overshadowed by their neighbors. Alexander the Great gets the glory for defeating them, while the Greeks bask in the spotlight for their cultural contributions. But perhaps it's time we give credit where it's due. Perhaps it's time we remembered the Persians not just as victims of circumstance, but as pioneers of progress, as architects of acceptance, and as soldiers who, despite their defeats, stood strong in the face of adversity. The Persian Empire may have faded from memory, but its legacy lives on, reminding us that even in a world dominated by conquerors and kingdoms, the spirit of innovation, tolerance, and resilience can endure, carrying the winds of change across the sands of time. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, check out this playlist for more videos on ancient civilizations. And don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos.